Captain's Log, Episode 39. This week's episode of the Beer Vengers podcast is sponsored by Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, located at 35-11 Ditmars Boulevard in Astoria, Queens. Now open 7 days a week with outdoor and indoor dining. Enjoy the eclectic array of craft beer, artisanal cheeses, and specialty grocery items at Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, home bar to yours truly, Captain Porter Brown Stout. Today's show features more exciting pours and experiences as Beer Wonder and the Captain have an early afternoon drink together. Whatever shall we call this episode? Remember to like, star, and subscribe us whenever that feels appropriate. And send us your emails at thebeervengers@gmail.com if you have any questions, suggestions, or if you just like hearing us talk about you on the show. And now, without further ado, please enjoy episode 39, Day Drinking with Captain and Beer Wonder.
Well, we're the Beer Vengers, Beer Vengers, Beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.
Welcome to the Beercast, everyone. Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Astoria, Queens, I am Captain Porter Brown Stout.
And coming to you from an undisclosed location in the County of Kings, it is I, the Beer Wonder!
And we are the Beer
Vengers.
That's right.
Yeah. It's not okay when there's two of us.
It was kind of hypnotic a little bit. That's right. We are the Beer Vengers, at least two of them. This week, we know a lot of you out there on your summer, but you don't have as much time to listen to podcasts, and we don't. We want to spend a lot of our time out in the world as well. So we're doing a sort of scaled down few episodes off and on this summer, depending on how things go. So we're going to call tentatively. We're going to call this Day Drinking with Captain and the Beer Wonder. I don't know what time you're listening to this, but it's about 1:15 in the afternoon on a Thursday here. So we decided we'd come out, have a beer, talk about a few things, and so without further ado, what do you have there, Beer Wonder? What do you have? What pour have you brought?
Well, we are heading into the end of June, and in that June is a special month for many of us. I figured it was time to represent for some of the Pride beers that are coming out in New York, and so I have got from our friends at Threes Brewing the Gender Neutral with its bright, colorful can here.
I noticed that one in a few refrigerated cases.
Yeah, it's a good one. It pops out for sure. This one, it is listed as a pale lager with lemon zest. Seasonal beer, of course, just for this time of year. So I thought I would give it a shot and see how it goes.
Very good.
All right, let's crack this bad boy open.
Beautiful little crack there.
Yeah, awesome. Here we go, and 45 degrees. Gentle little pour here.
Oh yeah, that's a nice. So it's a lager, so it's a nice amber color there.
Yep, nice, clean, a nice clear color to it. Kind of, get that good straw and a decent head build up. I'm noticing it's kind of larger bubbles, but they seem to be sticking around because there's a little extra. There's some fun adjuncts in here that we'll get into in a sec. And I can already smell the light lageriness off the nose immediately.
Very good. It defies definition. It is a non-binary beer.
It's true.
Although it calls itself a lager, but it's still gender neutral.
Exactly.
The beer that I have today is a
sponsored pour.
That's right. It's a sponsored
exciting.
pour. That's right. From Astoria Beer and Cheese at 35 Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars at 35-11 Ditmars. In fact, by the time you hear this, we will have celebrated their 7th anniversary party. Which I'm so looking forward to doing that this coming Sunday. But yeah, I was there the other day, and Ryan gave me this one. It's another one under the auspices of the 12% Project. We need to go visit there at some point. I know it's all the way in Connecticut, but I guess they seem to be entirely a house for other brewers. So it's like it's sort of a.
Okay.
Have you seen any beers that are calling themselves 12%?
No, I haven't.
No, they're all beers that are distributed by 12%.
Oh, wow.
But they do have a tap room there. And
cool.
one of the ones that seems to make a home there is Timber Ales.
Okay.
This is a collaboration between them and Phase 3. It is called Chasing the Chaos.
Oh, my.
It's surprise.
Love the can art, too.
And surprise, it's an Imperial Stout, of course.
I would
It's
expect
a
nothing less from you, Captain.
it is a Neapolitan ice cream style
Oh,
imperial
fun.
stout. So with the
Okay.
strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla, all three of them there, and let's see how this
Beautiful.
looks.
Oh my goodness. It's pouring so dark. I mean, for an imperial
Yeah,
stout, you expect it, but it's pouring quicker than I'd expect for something that's going to be
true.
that bold for sure.
Don't have to worry about the tilt as much with this modest head, but yeah, there we
No,
go,
that's true.
chasing the
There you
chaos.
go. Yeah, beautiful.
Hmm.
Fantastic.
All right,
Well,
good.
cheers, Captain.
Cheers, Slancha, Kampai.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's really nice.
Ooh.
It's definitely thick and rich, as one might
Mm-hmm.
expect. Not not especially boozy. I'm searching on the can. They got very small writing on it, and I have old eyes. But I'm not sure exactly what the percentage is on that yet. But I will find that.
Okay. Well, I was going to say, if you had to guess with your expert palate at this point, do you want to make a wager before we get the actual answer?
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna just throw out there. Let's still take another sip here.
Oh, good. See, sip for science, always important.
I don't know. Maybe a 10.8.
Ooh,
That'd
okay.
be my guess
10.8.
anyway.
All right.
Tell us a little bit more of that one while I'm looking this up.
Fantastic. Well, I'm very much enjoying this gender neutral from our friends at Threes. This is a regular of their Pride beers. They've been making it for a couple of years. I believe it's been since around 2017, and they introduced it for Pride. And they kind of tend to have a lot of fun with the naming on these beers, and the can art's pretty excellent. But it's been a consistent sort of big seller, and it's a lovely, easy, good, hot June summer drinking beer. It's got that like pale lager feel to it. They're using Pilsner malt and they're using flaked corn, which gives it a little bit of that extra protein, kind of that like almost like a Mexican lager feel to it, which is really lovely. And I definitely get the sense of the lemon zest in there. It's very subtle. They do suggest that there might also be some lime in there. I'm not really getting that, but it's a very easy kind of goes down kind of quick beer. I can see how it would be great if you're, at a pride parade, letting the sun hit you while everyone's making a lot of noise. It would be a good cool down, relaxing beer. It's a little guy. It's only 4.5%, so it's
Okay.
not working that hard. But it is working hard in other ways because just like with most of the beers that you'll see, this one, a percentage of it is going towards a good cause. So about 10% of the gender neutral sales go towards the Anti-Violence Project, which is a New York City based organization that works with LGBTQ plus and HIV affected individuals to address all forms of violence. They do a lot of organizing, support, and of course, education work. So it's good cause beer. It's good tasting good cause beer.
Well, that sounds good. I'll have to try that one, even though I don't
Mhm.
walk on the lager side of the fence too often.
I know.
I should probably be a little less binary in my taste regarding beer.
Fair enough.
So I did. I understated this one a little bit. I should have guessed since it's distributed by 12%. It's a 12%er.
Okay.
This is a
Right.
12% ABV, and it's really nice. It's not overly sweet. You
Mhm.
expect that it could be with a pastry stout, right? Because
Yeah.
sometimes if it's got chocolate and vanilla and strawberry, especially sometimes strawberries can really dominate. But it's everything is given equal measure in this one, I think.
Yeah. That's nice. So a well balanced beer is what it
Very
sounds
very
like.
very much so,
Mhm.
and yeah, definitely you taste the weight of it to a degree. It's not
Mhm.
especially boozy, but it's thick and it's a nice sipping beer. I don't
Yeah.
know a whole lot about this brewery. I tried to look up a few things. They don't have a website. Well, the
Okay.
one in the other one, Phase 3, they're in Illinois,
Okay.
and I don't
Nice.
know much about them. In fact, it sounds like it was pretty much based on the information they have on the website or on the what because when 12% distributed, they put a little paragraph to
Mhm.
go out to all the distributors, and it's all about how Sean from Phase 3 helped us. So
Oh,
that's why it's
nice.
a collaboration. So it seems like it was mostly done here, but it was done in collaboration with a guy from Phase 3.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
so if I'm ever in Illinois, I may look them up.
Yeah, that's very cool. That's great. I did. Speaking of this one, I did want to mention regarding the can art. So Threes, of course, has very famously has this sort of like tectonic or this plates swirling design for all of their lagers. This is the same design that you'll find on anything else. So if you've had their Vliet, or you've had the Volition, which is their black lager, or any of their really kind of traditional light sweet things, this is the exact same can art, just rainbow-ized, which I think is kind of cool. I love when they do that.
Yeah, it's really
Um,
nice.
And also, big shout out to Threes. They have continued their Threes to You contactless delivery program. So if you happen to be in Gotham City and would like a beer to just arrive fresh from the brewery, make sure you head over to their website, threesbrewing.com, and you can get fresh beer straight to your door. Unfortunately, without necessarily seeing another human, which I know is something we're all excited about now, but it's sort
We
of on its
certainly
way.
are, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about that later. But although let's talk about specifically now with regard to Threes, they have
Mhm.
2 locations now, don't they? They have 2 separate rooms.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they've got their Gowanus location, and then I am briefly blanking on what the other
I
one
think it
is.
might be up in Greenpoint.
I think that's where it is. Yes, it's in Greenpoint.
Right up there around Greenpoint. Beer's up there as well, of course,
Mhm,
obviously, and
naturally.
Keg and Lantern has a spot up there.
Yeah, that it's becoming a little bit of a beer center over there in Greenpoint. You can continue to stumble your way to other locations as opposed to just having to sit in one spot. Now, Captain, there was a bar in Greenpoint that we went to early on before there was some distribution. Very like very Scandinavian. Do you remember the name of it? I believe.
In Greenpoint, and it was Scandinavian.
Yes, I believe it was actually, now that's coming to me, Torst.
That's in Greenpoint. Really, I thought it was a little further down in.
Oh, see, I always have a little trouble about where
Yeah.
the dividing line is there when we're dealing with Greenpoint and Williamsburg.
Well, because often when I think about, yeah, I think it's that's a good question because I feel like it is. I mean, I think of Greenpoint. I obviously, since I'm in Astoria,
Right.
I think of Greenpoint more as the top of it. So I don't know how deep it goes in.
Oh, I
Like
see.
for
Okay.
instance, like I could go right over that. What's that really small bridge there? In fact, I went over it once when I was on my way to meet you for one of the places we were having
Yes,
lunch at.
I right at the tip of it, right at the tip of Greenpoint, right?
Yeah,
I
it's
believe it's the Pulaski Bridge, if I'm
that's
thinking
it.
of
The
the same one that
Pulaski,
you are.
or
Yeah.
yeah, also known as the Pulaski Skyway.
Yes, important.
But yeah, and it's like a fairly small bridge, but it's a real easy way to get from like right around edge of Long Island City into Greenpoint. And I
Mhm.
know a lot of those other. Yeah, Torst is so great. We need that's another one to put on the list of ones we need to go back to.
Yes,
Uh,
and I'm also having a memory of one of my favorite places that I only ever went to on a really spectacular first date that did not turn into a great second date. But that is the Spritzen House 33, which is this massive beer hall right across from McCarran Park. So again, sort of getting into Williamsburg, but within spitting distance of other Greenpoint locations, actually very close to Keg and Lantern, which is certainly on my list to get back to. Just massive space with great German style beers, and a beautiful park view. So good.
yeah,
Now that outdoor drinking is continuing to be in,
yeah,
good
so
times.
I'll check that place out. The other
Mhm.
great thing about interesting thing about Torst is that
Mhm.
they used to be partners with Evil Twin.
Right, I remember that.
That was like sort of the Evil Twin resident bar,
Mhm.
and to the best of what I've read about it, because you never know what's really going on. You only know what they tell the
Right,
press. Because unless you're
exactly.
friends with Yeppe, and even then, who knows? With the trickster that he is, who knows if he'd tell you the truth,
Mhm.
uh, or he might tell you some version of it that's more fun.
Right.
That I think when they opened up for their first Queen's Tap Room,
Yeah.
they pretty much they needed all the resources they could, so they divested themselves out of Torst to free up resources
Ah,
so they could put together the beautiful greenhouse there in Ridgewood.
yes, that makes sense. Well, and now they're beautiful, not quite greenhouse, but greenhouse-esque here
Right.
near my undisclosed location in Dumbo, which
Yes.
continues
Well,
to be exciting.
I believe when you and I and Huck were there a couple weeks ago, our waitress was telling us that that it was sort of like a tribute. The fact that there was greenery on the walls was a tribute to the fact that there are other places a greenhouse. I
It's
mean,
a legitimate greenhouse.
it's
Yeah.
a legitimate greenhouse. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like sort of the whole design for it,
Hmm.
which made it perfect for both indoor and outdoor. But I believe they're well into doing indoor as well.
Yes, very much so. Um, well, it sounds like two good pours this week, and chalking
Yeah,
a few more up to
absolutely.
the list.
Yeah.
But it is kind of a fun time to be a beer drinker in at least Gotham City, because we are in the month of June, which of course puts us directly into Pride Month, which is always a fun time that our breweries here in Gotham City start to put out all their Pride beers. And so I figured it was a good time to do that. Queer culture and beer are actually inextricably linked, as watering holes were the places where queer people certainly met. Early on, before things were a little bit more accepted and out in the open. So it's fun to see the brewery sort of maintaining that tradition and putting out beers that are connected to causes. And the New York City Brewers Guild, as always, has done a scavenger hunt this year, an Instagram scavenger hunt to check out all of the Pride breweries that are happening, or the Pride beers that are happening all around New York City. I'll call out a couple that are definitely always on my list. United by Beer by our friends down at Five Boroughs Brewing is a delicious IPA. There is always the Stonewall IPA that comes out of Brooklyn breweries.
Yes, which apparently they're going to have that all summer. It's not just a Pride Month thing. They're planning on keeping that around for a while.
Well, and that one actually they continued to have in their tap room at Brooklyn Brewery. So if you went out to Williamsburg, speaking of Greenpoint area, you could always get yourself some of that Stonewall IPA. So I actually wound up and was finding that throughout the year at my local beer shop, and so I was enjoying that throughout the pandemic because it was just fun to be able to drink it. It's a really good beer.
Yeah.
So a lot of folks are doing there, and they're all connected to different queer causes. But I know that speaking of beer and queer spaces, Stonewall has actually been in the news for some beer action recently, right, Captain?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because we always talk a lot about the evils of the corporate beer venger sphere. Well, not the beer venger sphere, but the hoposphere, whatever you want to call the beer world, the beer world, and the struggles between the corporate beer world and the indie beer world. And we have had plenty of reasons not to like Anheuser-Busch, or as their full name is, AB InBev.
Yes, AB InBev.
And of course, so a lot of them, since they are corporate and they want to appear to be a good corporate citizen, they will do all kinds of, Pride beers and wear a rainbow flag at the right time of year. But at the same time, they're contributing to politicians and causes that are working against the cause. And Stonewall Inn decided to call out AB InBev on their hypocrisy. And they're not going to be selling their beer for the immediate future. And they had a whole demonstration yesterday where they poured out all of the AB InBev beers on the curb. It was a very powerful moment. My first thought when I saw it was the same thing. I had a weird gut reaction because you remember back when we thought it was okay to protest France because they were right about we shouldn't go into Iraq.
Yes. Freedom fries, I think they called them, right?
Freedom fries, and they had people pouring out French wines. And that was just, but I also looked at this sort of thing as like, my first thought is, well, you already paid for that beer.
Fair.
But then on the other hand, they have a limited amount of storage space, so they can't just leave it. If they say, we're not going to sell this, but we have all of this, they need the space to carry the beers they're actually going to sell.
Right.
So,
that is true.
So I guess that's probably why they decided to have that moment of like, okay, we need room for the beers that aren't funding hate, so let's just dump out all the beers in the street.
Well, and if with the history of at least Pride in especially coming out of New York City, Pride being a protest, it is kind of fun to see one of the centers of that, one of the historic centers of that, at least in Gotham, literally taking the protest to the streets with beer.
And I imagine that there's, especially with so many breweries just in New York City alone, let alone all the other genuine allies of the craft beer industry, it's ultimately going to lead to Stonewall having better beer. And if AB InBev ever backtracks, they're going to say, well, okay, actually people like these beers better. So you had your chance, evil corporate assholes.
If I'm going to swing by Stonewall, I'm certainly getting the Stonewall IPA because it seems only appropriate, right?
Absolutely.
But I also did. I was walking through the village a couple days ago, just enjoying, exploring the city and making sure that everything was still where we left it. That kind of thing. Which I feel like is the new way you have to get to know New York City. And I did notice.
Yeah, I haven't been back to the village yet. In fact, I was just thinking the other day that you and I should. I have a few things on my list of places we need to go hang out as soon as possible.
Is Blind Tiger one of them?
That was the top of the list. Yes.
Well, there you go.
Now, beer vengers out there in the world, in whatever state, country, parts unknown you're listening to. We did not discuss that particular before the show. We talked. We actually do. You have a little bit of a pre-show talk before this. We did not say that, but absolutely, Blind Tiger was the first place I would say let's go there as soon as possible.
Well, I agree, and I will say when I was walking through the village again, just checking on all of our friends to see if they were around. And of course, a few of them have moved on to the great beyond of locations, as many small businesses have done in Gotham. But Blind Tiger's doing well and has a beautiful outdoor seating setup because, at least while I was there, they had closed down part of the street. So next to there's a side street that is there that's a little bit more
Okay.
residential, and that part was closed down, and there were tables all throughout that area. So folks were sitting outside having a beer. For those of you who may have visited Blind Tiger, at least my memory of it is always like cheek to jowl, packed in with people, a little sweaty. Whenever I would have to meet the captain, who would usually always beat me there because the Beer Wonder is perpetually late to things. You would be holding down a spot at the bar and defending my seat as a good beer venger should.
If that were even possible.
Yes.
I regret to say there were a couple times you said, I guess we can't have this great beer here. Let's go to somewhere else that was nice but doesn't hold a candle to it.
Exactly. But I did check in on them. I did want to make sure that they were still around. But specifically speaking of Stonewall, I think of a lot of the gay bars and queer spaces being this like indoor place because people might want to, not necessarily be out in the open for this kind of thing. And Stonewall has lovely outdoor seating, which I think is a nice statement about where the queer community has come, is that we can all just literally sit outside in front of one of the iconic queer establishments in New York City and have a beer out there.
Everyone's out. Yeah. I mean,
everyone's out.
I guess
Literally.
it's interesting that, well, of course, Stonewall Inn is also now a official national park, or
Yeah, it is.
on the National Park Registry,
Mhm.
which says something really, it's sort of kind of cool. And I mean, it's a little sad in some ways, but ultimately it's because of all the progress we've made,
Right.
is that gay bars are increasingly becoming relics because queer people don't need to have they're since are much more welcome in every other space and being out, and also that on top of the apps. I think that's a big part
Right.
of it.
Exactly. Yes.
There's so many
it's
other
easier-
ways. It used to be the only way that LGBTQIA plus, is that what it is now?
Yes. If you want to be really specific, I believe it is LGBTQIA2S, which adds in twin spirit for indigenous populations. But the kids these days, because I'm so hip with the TikToks and the children, they're now referring to it as the alphabet mafia, which honestly, I'm okay with that.
And queer community is all right for
Yes,
umbrella
queer
term
community has
as well.
been
Okay.
reclaimed.
Yes.
It's hard with the language, right? It just keeps changing.
Well, it is, because that's one of the only examples I can think of where you've taken a pejorative and really completely reclaimed it. I can't think of any other oppressed community that has really managed to really totally reclaim as a sense of pride something people used to call you while they were throwing things at you.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. I mean, it is amazing that queer is considered okay. There's some speaking of being hip with the TikToks. There's a gay comic, or a gay pair of comics that I follow. I believe that they go by Dick and Dwayne. And they've been around for a pretty long time. They're, I think, honestly, they're in either their 50s or 60s at this point. And they get really concerned about the sort of attempted reclamation of the F slur that is often used for queer people, where a lot of people in the Gen Z community are totally cool with that. And they're saying, nope, that was a slur that we just can't accept anymore. But it is cool that queer has come back.
Yeah.
At least. So,
well, it's yes, the small bundle of sticks, or the British word for cigarette.
Yes.
That's an interesting one, because I maybe that's more because, I don't know, there's all sorts of speculations you could have. One, because that would generally be referring to one specific segment of that large population we described.
Exactly.
Whereas queer, since it is one that's it's pretty much anyone who is not heteronormative,
right,
fits into that larger queer community.
It's a big tent.
Yeah.
It's a big tent. And friends are invited in too, of course, if you're friendly to the cause.
Yeah.
So But yeah, well, you were mentioning Blind Tiger,
Yeah.
and going to visit some of our old friends.
Yeah, I was thinking as you were talking about how we spent a lot of the last not all every of the last 38 episodes, but there was definitely a point where it was a focus every week where we talk about all the places that hadn't survived the pandemic, and I think it's important to draw attention to those. But I think now that we can, for whatever time we can, if things keep up the way they are, we
Hmm.
can be out in the world. I think it's a time to celebrate all those places that we missed being in
That's
that
very
that
true.
did survive it. And so we want to dedicate a little bit of time each week to talking about some of the places that whether they were on our original blog. And I'm actually looked back at the blog we wrote back in 2014 about
Yeah,
some of the places we had on that initial crawl. I want to go back in some of those places and some of the places that are near there. And it just so happens that one of our very first entries
hmm.
was for a place in my neighborhood called Sunswick 3535.
Oh, I love that place.
Yeah, I do too. It's in 2014 we started writing the blog, and the first sort of shape we had to do it was we were going for where the beer passport was,
Right.
and that was one in particular where there weren't many in Queens, but
Hmm.
Sunswick 3535 was the pickup spot for the passport. So that's why that was my very first place in there.
Now,
Uh,
Captain, remind the folks what year we're talking about here.
2014.
Right. So again, we're 7 years in the future now with that. So I feel like the Queen's beer scene has blossomed. The craft beer scene, at least, has really bloomed in a nice way,
It sure
such
has.
that at that time there weren't that many places to get a craft beer in
Well,
Queens.
I mean that's true to some degree. I also
Mhm.
think that this was the second or third iteration of the passport,
That's true. Yes.
and I think that the guy, what's his name, Rev Ciencio, Rev
Yes. Hmm.
Ciencio, I
Hmm.
think he had better ends with some communities than with some others.
Fair. That's true. Yeah.
And also, hmm, well, there's all sorts of reasons that I won't get into as to why some places were a little wary of the passports. A lot of it had to
Right.
do with people.
Exactly.
They would do the passport, and people would go there, and people would just say it's a free beer. I don't need to tip, and then so
Yeah.
people would say no more passports for me.
Right. Which
Um,
to just to say, beer vendors always tip their
oh, well, of
bartenders, and
course,
they tip them
yes.
well, right?
I mean, you tip them even better because you're getting a free beer.
Exactly.
I mean, you should tip generously all the time. Yeah. But all those things aside, well, this was what I found kind of interesting looking at those couple of first entries
Yeah.
is because yes, it's blossomed a little bit, but also there are a number of things that are on that list that aren't around anymore that had nothing to do with the pandemic.
Right. Oh,
Like
interesting.
that was one where I think it was starting. The Queen's entry place was at Sunswick, but I actually met you the night before there at the late lamented Idle Hands.
Oh, yeah.
Because that was the Manhattan entry point.
Yes, that
So we
was.
went and picked up our cards there, and then I was meeting some of the other beer vendors the next night. I believe it was the Belgian Babe as well as the Saison Kid,
Oh,
and we
sure.
met at Sunswick. Now, here to give you a little bit more about Sunswick 3535, the
Yeah, of
reason
course.
it's called Sunswick 3535, we usually just call it Sunswick, but it's
Mhm.
3535 because it's at the intersection of 35th Avenue and 35th Street. It's helpful for me to remember the full title of it because that means I always remember where to go. The only movie theater in my neighborhood, aside from the Museum of the Moving Image, which it's also very close to,
Yep.
is there's a Kaufman Astoria, or the Kaufman Astoria is the movie studio there, but the Regal Kaufman Astoria movie theater 14 screen complex is there. So if I'm going to a movie in my neighborhood, that's where I'm going.
Right.
And even though there's like all sorts of chain stuff around there, like Applebee's and Uno's and Panera, if I'm in that neighborhood doing anything, I'm going to go to Sunswick 3535 to have a beer and
Yeah.
maybe lunch too, which I did both of last week.
Oh, excellent.
And it's we've talked a lot about how much beer prices, how much. I mean, I guess as inflation in general has gone up over the last 7 years or so.
Yes.
And what was cool about Sunswick in the 7 years ago was they were pretty much the exact same price model as Pony.
Oh, okay.
Like
Sure.
most of their beers were like $6 or $5 at happy hour.
Hmm.
Understandably, they haven't been able to do that and stay in business, but it was cool that
Right.
they
Of
were that
course.
way. And in fact, I back to swing all the things in together.
Yeah.
I think that both Sunswick and Pony both have a little bit of Blind Tiger DNA.
Well, as it should be.
I think Dan from the Pony started at Blind Tiger, at least one of them, not the one we go to, but they've had several different locations. But there was a guy who I haven't seen there in a while, but I think who was the owner of Sunswick, who we would talk about when he worked at the Blind Tiger as well.
Right.
But this one, there are definitely a lot of reasonable options, but because of my want, because of my nature, I had to get these wonderful aged. I mean, I don't know where they keep these things. They just keep the kegs in the basement for a while, or if they get them from somewhere else.
Sure.
But I had an AleSmith Speedway Stout from 2017.
Whoa.
Which is one of my favorite beers of all time. All the different versions of that one, but the basic, and they had it on tap. And then they also had a Firestone Walker Parabola, which is a Russian Imperial Stout from 2018. So I had both of those and a burger, and one of the biggest burgers, just huge, really nice bread. And chatted with the bartender there a little while about, the last year they've had and how they survived. They're like many of the places, they did their window, and it was well, we talk about this a lot. I'm predicting that in a month, either some horrible thing is going to happen, or we will completely stop having the conversation about how, and I wasn't sure what to do about the masks, because things are evolving so quickly.
Right, exactly.
But I was still, and I still am, in the situation when I go to a new place, I'm like, mask or no mask? Mask? Where's the sign? What do the signs say?
Yeah, exactly.
And I just sort of looked in and saw that said, if you're vaccinated, it's okay, and no one inside was wearing one. So I'm like, okay, I guess I can walk in, and I'm still going to ask. But yeah, it's free.
We were talking about this, Captain, the other day about how really, we've been, at least I have been taking my cues from what staff members are. So, for example, if when over at Astoria Beer and Cheese Ditmars, the staff is wearing masks, and so it does seem that the appropriate etiquette there is to, no matter what, wear a mask. Where at Evil Twin here in Dumbo, no one is wearing masks, and so the appropriate etiquette there seems to be to go in maskless unless you feel uncomfortable doing that kind of
or if you're unvaccinated.
Or if you're of course, if you're unvaccinated,
and if you're our audience and you are, get vaccinated. Since we were going there, like,
yeah, that was what I was going to say. Like, get your damn shot, okay? Get both of them. Help Uncle Joe get us to 70% first vaccinated by July 4th, which is not that far away.
Yeah, it looks like it's not going to happen though.
Yeah, well,
No, I mean, maybe there'll be a big surprise. That's just what I heard on the news yesterday.
No,
and when I say the news, I mean like one of the main three networks. I don't watch a lot of television news, but
Well, I'm living my best County of Kings liberal bleeding heart situation, and I only listen to National Public Radio.
So. Well, I listen to a lot of that as well.
I know you do. We talk about that.
Yes.
Well, you mentioned the window though at Sunswick, and I did want to just get some Beer Venger reaction from some breaking news that actually happened the day before we were recording this. That the to-go cocktail situation that we've had in Gotham City, where bars and restaurants were able to sell cocktails either to go or as part of delivery, which was something I had taken advantage of. My dear friends at Randolph Brewing, which is of course in my neighborhood, at the sort of midway through the pandemic, were doing a really nice rum slushy cocktail that they would put in a to-go cup, and I would get to go and perhaps consume in a location that was not Randolph Brewing, which I thought was kind of lovely. This, as our fearless governor leader Cuomo made the decision to end all of the emergency provisions. One of the emergency provisions that was ended was that the liquor authority is no longer allowing to-go cocktails as of the day we are recording this, which is June 24th. So this is your last day to get to-go cocktails. So, Captain, I wanted to get your thoughts on this and sort of if you indulged in any of this opportunity, and if you think it was good for Gotham, and if you think maybe the Beer Vengers should endorse this going forward, or you like the way it's going back to.
I have indulged in it. I do. Okay, what's the other question? With I have indulged in it. What was the second question? Well, this is the 1% beer I'm having.
Yeah, exactly. Have you indulged in it?
Yes.
And do you think it is the kind of thing that was helpful or hurtful to Gotham City?
Helpful.
Okay, talk to me why.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it was because it was a time. It was initiated at a time when all of our businesses were having a hard time,
Mhm.
And I honestly, though, I can't think of a good reason not to keep it going, because for one, just because they're allowed to have 100% capacity now,
Mhm.
and just because, and presumably it will stay that way,
Right.
and best case scenario, it's still going to take them a long time to get out of the hole they've been digging in themselves in the last year.
Right, exactly.
They need every bit of help they can get. I think that's a big reason why the people who want to park their cars in the street are losing the battle. As far, I mean, if we think we need to help the restaurants to the degree of that we need to keep all that outdoor seating. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some places, and if this is what they need, I support that as well. That their outdoor seating in some cases far exceeds what their indoor seating was previously.
Right, exactly.
But if
Exactly.
they can serve that many people and they can do that, and so the idea that just because we're at 100% means we have to stop helping people out of pandemic. I mean, if one thing we can do to help people as continued pandemic relief is let them sell to go cocktails, why
Yeah.
not?
Oh,
I'm,
most definitely.
yeah.
Mhm.
And the one rule that I on the other side of the thing that I'm happy that they've finally gotten rid of is the Cuomo snack policy,
Oh, yes. The dollar chips or whatever it was.
which is especially annoying if you're like on a crawl. Like, I mean, it like, say you go to a place and have lunch and a beer, and you want to go to another bar in the neighborhood. You just eat lunch. You don't want to have to get another piece of food, no matter how small it is, just because it's some edict from the governor.
Exactly. No, agreed. Agreed. Yeah, the Cuomo chips were a whole unique setup.
Cuomo
And I
chips, right?
think yes, well, no, I mean it was whatever, but it was you'd
No,
have
I think
to
I said
yeah.
Cuomo snacks, but Cuomo chips, I think, is what they were calling it, and that's a better name.
Well, no. I in fact earlier this or I guess last summer it would be now, I went on a little adventure in upstate New York with a friend, and we swung by a couple. We went to a cidery because she really enjoys cider, and we had lunch there, so we were taken care of with food. But we also went to a distillery and wanted to try some of their stuff there. And they weren't selling individual chips; they were selling you a full snack pack. It was a whole poo-poo platter of different kinds of salty, crunchy things,
And that
and
was the only thing you could order.
I was the only thing you could order because they were a distillery. So they had just gotten they'd gone to probably a Costco or something and just jammed whatever snacks they could find into a bag. I think there were like Reese's peanut butter cups in there, which was really weird with the Moscow Mule I was having.
Yeah.
But it was their way of getting around it. But that said, they were clearly selling it at cost. And it was just their way of getting around this. So
For me,
well done, Cuomo.
the
Get rid of that.
best version anyone did was Iconic Brewing had
Mm.
like 25-cent pretzel rods.
Ooh, actually, that's pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. So they just give you like a big like jar full of pretzel rods. Here's a
Yeah.
quarter. We're it's not costing you too much. It's not costing them too much. It's fulfilling the obligation.
Exactly. And also a pretzel rod is usually good with a beer.
Yeah.
So yeah, always a solid combo. Well, thinking about sort of weekend beer kind of stuff,
Yes.
I did want to give a shout out to our dear friends over at Evil Twin here in my neighborhood in Dumbo,
Hmm.
which is they're not only doing beer, and for those of you who know, and many of us have moved into remote work or computer work, have become a great location for those of us living in Dumbo to come and hang out because they open up at noon, 10 o'clock on the on weekends, but noon during the rest of the week. And they have great fast Wi-Fi, and you can sit there and you can have a beer and you can do the work that you need to do. Which, if that continues, more power. But they have now added, for those of us who maybe can't really do a beer at 10 o'clock in the morning. I know this is day drinking with the Captain and Beer Wonder, but like 10 a.m. feels a bit early, right, Captain?
I mean, it depends what time zone I'm in, but sure.
Fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
mean,
Well, I guess
honestly, if I'm getting on like a 5-hour plane ride, and I've just come from someplace where it's all, I mean, I've definitely been in situations where I have had, I wouldn't be drinking this early, but maybe I'll nap a little on the plane if I have
well,
a beer and a couple of cocktails.
yes, and airports are non-places, so they exist outside of the realm of space
Well,
and
that's
time.
true.
Let's be honest.
That's very
Yeah.
true.
But for those of us who do live in a physical place, I am very excited that Evil Twin in Dumbo has opened up their coffee shop. So now one can swing by and get either window service, or you can go in and grab yourself a cup of coffee. My neighborhood, unfortunately, had a really wonderful coffee roaster, and known as Brooklyn Brooklyn Roasting Company, which was all over the place. Their hive was here in Dumbo. They had actually two locations. Their big location where they were roasting completely went out of business at the
Oh,
beginning. I'm
that's too
sure the
bad.
rent was there. And then their smaller location, which was just up the block from where I live, also folded. I want to say about a month ago now. So that meant that our only coffee shop location, at least within the confines of Dumbo, was a Starbucks. And, we talk about how much we dislike AB InBev. I'm going to go to anyone besides Starbucks. So I'm excited that Evil Twin is now one of our, I believe, two, there's potentially a third one that's opening up, coffee shops with big seating areas where those of us who like to work in places can go. So I'm excited to start to get there nice and early, get myself a cup of coffee, and then slowly transition over to beer.
That sounds great. Yeah, it's funny. This last year, since I wasn't leaving my apartment and I couldn't get
Mhm.
enough good stuff at grocery stores, I did all sorts of experiments with mail order coffee.
Oh, yes.
Curious
You and
about
your,
Brooklyn Roasting. I actually got some free stuff from them one time to bring it full circle.
yes.
Well, it's not full circle since there's so many connecting points. I don't know if it's a giant parabola to go back
Yeah.
to Firestone. I don't know, some kind of geometry nerds fight me. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about here. But I wound up getting a thing from Brooklyn Roasting as a premium from WNYC,
Oh, yeah.
and I
Yeah.
still have a little can that I figuring out little like tin can that it came in that I'm trying to
Yeah.
figure out exactly what to do with. But I ordered from justcoffee.coop,
Mhm.
which I first heard about on Mark Maron's podcast. Thanks to the Belgian Blonde, I ordered some stuff from the Birds and Beans.
Mhm.
Got a nice big 5 pound brick of stuff from the Scarlet Tanager coffee. But the one that I've used more than any other is Puerto Rico,
Oh, yeah. You
which
mentioned
is
this to me.
I mean they've got a few of them, but the one I always used to go to is in the East Village on the 8th Street, that were just right below St. Mark's. And so I was just recently thinking about, okay, the next time I'm about to run out of coffee, I'm going to actually go there and buy it in person. And when I do, I'm going to go to the Proletariat.
Oh, yeah,
When were
classic.
you last at the Proletariat?
Oh, goodness. It's been certainly before the pandemic, maybe even like a year or two
Yeah.
before we all shut down. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I hope that they're still around. Did you check in on them to see if they're still kicking?
Oh, the Proletariat. Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Okay, good.
I was just looking at their Instagram the other day. So yeah, so I think right in that sort of little general area, I want to
Mhm.
see a show at the Crane Theater. I
Mhm.
want to have a beer at the Proletariat. And I want to buy some coffee from Puerto Rico. I think that's
Wow. I mean,
these are all.
you've
I
got
mean,
East.
I know we were talking about going to bars, but there's like this is all part of like okay, and for as long as we have a non-pandemic world, whether it's infinity or whether it's a window because the variant comes to get us.
Mhm.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
know that I don't. I don't want to. I don't want to sound such a doom, but it's like it's weighing on me. I
Mhm.
feel safe when I go out, but I also feel like what's next.
Yeah.
I think there's no way we can go through what we've gone through the last 15 months without thinking like, okay, any wonderful thing still feels a little bit like borrowed time.
Yeah, no, and people are taking their time to figure out what their version of safe is, and you need to take that time. But at the same time, I will always put the plug in for it. It is important to make sure that we're taking care of all of our small businesses,
Yeah,
especially those that have made it through,
and
because
especially
it's.
those that sponsor our podcast.
Oh yeah, like who?
I like a story beer and cheese Ditmars at 35-11 Ditmars, and you and I a few days
Uh-huh.
ago had a really nice nice, I guess it could be called a production meeting / day drinking session
Hmm.
/ lunch at Astoria Beer and Cheese. It was pretty hot, but it was we got just enough shade to make the backyard bearable, and we had some
Hmm.
nice beers there and some sandwiches. And I'm so looking forward. It's funny, we're not even plugging now because by the time you
No.
hear this, it's already happened. So I hope that we'll see some of you when we go there Sunday night for their big 7th-year anniversary party.
Mhm.
We've all ordered our sandwiches. We just figured that out a few days ago.
Yeah.
that we all had to order. It says like, oh, it's just, we'll bring you food. And then you get way to the bottom of the email, like, oh, and here, choose between these 4 sandwiches, and they all look incredible. Which one did you choose, Beer Wonder?
Oh gosh, I'll be honest, I can't remember anymore.
The one I have, I know, is like, it's like steak and there's horseradish and no, it's not steak, it's roast beef and horseradish and now I'm forgetting what else it is, but it's there. There's definitely obviously cheese, but I'm not
Naturally.
but it was just looked really really good, and I can't wait.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. They always throw a great party. I'm sure we'll have plenty to talk about next week.
Yes,
to
yes.
discuss
We
the
might try and
adventures that were
visit some
there.
other places as well. Some of the places we mentioned on this list, depending on
Mhm.
how that all comes out.
Mhm.
I obviously Blind Tiger and we will definitely make a where incognito trip to Staten Island at some point in the future.
Oh, naturally, at some point we need to again get their penance from them, and also
I don't
maybe
need to make any amends at all. I just want to go see what's good there.
it's fair. It's fair.
I
It's
just
fair. It's a lovely borough in certain places, and also okay, you know what? Here's the thing. I'm just going to unload on Staten Island for a hot
oh,
second.
please do.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's
I know. I'm always the one who's trying to like keep us all nice and polite here. But here's the thing. I work the elections every year. If you did not vote in this local election and you live in Gotham City, I don't like you anymore. But their Joe Borelli, their city council member, hard pass, dislike, get out, dude. You're the only one on the ballot. Nothing that you do is good. Just finished. Okay. You're South Shore. I don't really go to your neighborhood much. Not many great breweries there, but hard pass on him. So that's my one. That's
I
my
really
one
need
beer
more
wonder
info.
feeling.
I'm sorry. I know we're getting ready to go out and have the rest of our day here, but I really want. I've not read about Joe Borelli.
Oh,
Tell me
he's
about
just
it, and
he's
then
the most.
I will take over your position and mention the positive when you're done with it to
Fair
counterbalance
enough.
everything.
Joe Borelli is basically a Trumpian city council member.
Okay, yeah, it's nothing he's done in particular.
No, he's just horrible in general. He's just horrible
Is he
in
like the
general.
guy who wanted to break you in half like a boy? Oh, do you remember?
Eh?
No, this was the guy. He was the congressperson from there, and he
Oh,
threatened a New
really?
York One reporter. He was like, "I will break you in half like a boy. I'll throw you off this balcony." He was a guy. I'm not even. And now it's the Meliatakis.
Oh, right.
She's the one who has his seat now.
Yes.
But Grimm, I think his last name was Grimm. Was not anywhere near as a good representative of the name as our friends at Grimm Brewery. But
yeah.
Michael Grimm, I think was his name. Yeah, look him up. He's okay. So yeah, so they have horrible politicians and
Yeah.
enough horrible people to go there. But I'm really looking forward to going back to Adobe Blues.
Oh God, am I ever? We are friendly with one of the bartenders there. I had an opportunity to do a show with him, and it's a beautiful spot. I'm also interested to see what Flagship might be putting out right now.
I mean, I'm willing to try it, but what to me the biggest is to me my biggest priority. Flagship would be number 3 in terms of things that I want to go head out there.
Okay.
Because well, the biggest one is I want to find out what the Killsborough space is all about.
Oh yeah, that's true. That one, yeah.
Because they basically started as a brewery within like a gastropub kind of a thing, and then they sort of took on their own life from that. They're still housed there, and that's still the place where you can go and have lunch and have their beer. And of course, since we didn't plan this out, I don't have the written down, but we'll put that in the show notes or wherever we need to. So I would say Killsborough first for just to see what it's all about. Adobe Blues because they're great, and I'm so glad they're still around because
yes, for sure.
they're one of my very favorite things about Staten Island. And yeah, we'll see what Flagship has for us there as well.
Well, that's the just before you get back on the boat beer, which honestly, still recommending Staten Island Ferry, cheapest bar in the city with the best views.
So it still is. We might have talked about the last. It's gone up since I think the first time I ever went on there it was $2.75, but I'm sure it's still.
The beers.
Reasonable.
Yeah, it's gone up significantly.
Of
That's
course.
about like $4 or $5.
That's reasonable. I can deal with that.
Well, I'll be honest, I have not gone since pre-pandemic time, so we'll see what's happening there. But it's not bad.
All right. Well, this has been very fun. Little bit of day drinking with you.
Always.
And now we can go and day drink for the rest of our day if we choose, or whatever the rest of the day has for us.
Now, if folks want to day drink along with us, Captain, where should they look?
Well, I mean, you can certainly. I would say follow us on Instagram because we will be announcing the places we're going to day drink as we do it, and then we'll be reporting back here. But if you really want to see where we are, if you want to come find us, we can be found. That's on Instagram at the Beer Vengers. You can also see other stuff on our Twitter feed, which is also at the Beer Vengers, and Facebook. But if you want to ask us about any of this, I mean, I know those have messaging things as well, but the best thing to do is go to thebeervengers@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And you know where to find us, anywhere you can find your podcasts. And if you can't find us, tell us, and we'll do what we can to help you find us there. Yeah. And I think, although Huck isn't physically with us, he's about to play us out. And thank you so much for listening. Beer Vengers, in here, out there, and all around the world.
With the beer Vengers, beer Vengers, beer Vengers.
We're the Beer Vengers.